Welcome back, everyone, to the second session on the second day of Boundless Freedom. So what's being expressed here is I started this question earlier, what if? What if? This is just a suggestion, right? What if everything that is being expressed here, that this is boundless freedom, is not interpreted? It's not questioned, and does not have a series of questions after. What if what's being suggested, that there's never been anyone here, is just heard? That there's no one there, there's no one here, is just what is. Just the simplicity of this communication. What if what's being suggested is that there's no time? What if what's being suggested is just taken as plainly that there's nothing happening? What if being suggested is that this is already it, and there's no follow-up question to where is it? What if what is being directly communicated is that this is appearing as everything? What if plainly what is being expressed here is already as it is, and there's nothing to figure out? What if there's no thinking about what this is? What if there's no thoughts? What if what is being suggested here is just seen as just like breathing? We don't try to interpret breathing in and out. It's just what's happening, thoughts coming in and out. Just plainly, just really, really simply. What if what is being suggested is just this synonymous saying that everything is nothing? Period. What if there's no thinker and there are no thoughts, and the absence of language and ideas, and this is just what's left, is just this emptiness? Just the directness, just the obviousness, just the immediacy of this. What if there's no time, and all the memory, all of the thoughts about time, about getting somewhere, doesn't have anywhere to go? It's just a thought coming that's not really there, and it's just this. What if this is everything that you have longed for? And this is just a suggestion, and what you long for is everything. Since what is longed for sometimes changes from, like, I want a strawberry, I want this, I want liberation. What if that's just like breathing, it's just coming in and out? And what if that is just a distraction of what is longed for, or just a suggestion of something obscuring what is already? What is already is this. And this is the final destination. This is the full stop. This is the end. There was no beginning. What if nothing was ever lost? What if there's this silly idea of separation that comes as thoughts? There's nothing wrong or right about it, but it's just a suggestion. So in this clarity, there's always the suggestion that there's something other than this. What if that's flipped around? And this is just a suggestion. This is just, there's nothing to be figured out here, nothing that is missing, because everything that is longed for or sought for appears in everything, but the one that's longing for something is not even there. It comes in spurts, it comes sporadically. What if, when it's said that this is just a dream or like an illusion, there's curiousness in it, rather than, well, this is not a dream for me, rather than that. And even when that comes, it's also seen as a dream, as an illusion. What if there's no talking happening here? There's no sound happening, but it appears that there's sound coming in, there's words coming out, and there's someone speaking. What if an appearance is just an appearance? What if this seamlessness, this obviousness, this unbrokenness, this wholeness is just being separated by this apparent ideas of separation that's not quite there? What if the veil is seen through? What if the veil is transparent? What if the veil is empty? What if the seeing is already complete? What if there's no observer? What if there's no witness? What if there's no separation between witness and there's no subject and object? What if those are just ideas? What if this is just a dream? What if this is just an illusion of separation? These are just suggestions. What if this is seen as a dream and emptiness, but there's a rejection of the emptiness that it longs for because it believes in a dream? What if belief were really transparent or not even real? That this illusion is really held on by a really flimsy belief that this is real. What if that shook apart a little bit? What if that's seen through? You're like, oh wow, that belief is really empty. There are really no what ifs. There are really no coming here to there. This is just a radical all at onceness that it's already empty. What if it's just a what if that comes as a question or as a suggestion of this or that, this, but there's no this or that. It's just this. There's not even a this, it's just this wordless, nameless appearance that is just so radiant, it's so vibrant, but it's empty. But it appears in everything that is seen, that is not seen. It appears as the seeing, the seer, and the seen. Not separate, so what's being seen, this one seeing it, and everything that is seen is whole and complete. So what's being suggested here is that there are no certainties. Everything is what if, and there's really no what if. There's no destination. There's no authority. This is just wild and free. So whatever arises is also it. There's no separation whatsoever. It's just seamless. This is already dream, deep sleep. Everyone longs for this peacefulness, but it's here already. Everyone seems to long for this liberation, but it's liberated already. Everyone's seeking for this freedom, but the freedom is this. Since there's no time to get from here to there, there's always this as it is. What if the one asking what if is an illusion? All right, let's ask. If you want to ask some questions, if you want to chat and explore or whatever, talk about nothing at all, feel free to ask a question, raise your hand, or we can just think of having cheesecake. Hey, Steve. Thank you, Laura. I like my shirt too.
I like your shirt too.
Oh, I can't hear you.
I like your shirt too. Can you hear me now?
Thank you. Thank you.
My first glimpse, going back more than 10 years ago, came when I think I've told you about this before. When the question, what if there were no I, occurred to me.
Yeah.
And that question cycled over and over again without my doing anything until I realized there wasn't.
Yeah.
There was no I.
Yeah.
So that's not a method.
No.
But
not really.
That it happened. Just happened.
Because it's not in the method, because if this was a method, everybody would have gotten this, right? It's
Me too.
It's almost kind of like it's a trick basically, right? Because there's no one asking this what if, and there's no separation. There are really no what ifs. There are really no practice, and it's just basically expressing that this is already the what if. It doesn't require a here to there. It's here already. It's this already.
But it can shift. It can shift a little bit how you're looking at it.
Yeah, that's what's being pointed out, that the what if is the illusion, is the dance. Is the train of thought.
Right.
It's the one that derails, the one that never gets anywhere. Because it's circling around something that it can never get. Because what is longed for is already. All the what ifs, there's no what ifs. It's already. There's nothing missing. There's nothing lacking. It's already this. It's just what's being expressed is the immediacy, the directness of this communication. That it doesn't play around. You know what I'm saying? It's just saying, well, this is it. And it's not going to give any false, practices or inquiry. You know what I'm saying? It's just this. Or if it does, it always leads you back to, you will never get this because there's no you to get it. So what's being suggested is questioned usually, right? It's questioned. When it's saying, when there's a communication saying that there's always been this. So there's a narrative, a train of thought that comes in, well, it's not always this for me. So it's captured right away. It's already. So what if that narrator, the one that's asking what if, the one that is trying to get it, is the veil that is clearly seen through? I'm like, oh, what if is the veil? What if it's transparent? What if it's seen through, that it's just an apparition or an appearance of what's being expressed? Because it's in the same sentence anyway.
It's the question that answers itself.
Yes, it's answering itself, yeah. What if this is already it? There's no question mark. It's the same sentence. This is already it. The what if that appears in the same sentence is the one that's obscuring that this is already it.
At the same time, it's pointing to it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the circular thing, right? And then when there is, I think it was mentioned yesterday that there's a subtle stepping back. You're like, holy crow, that question that's ruminating around. Is it also? It's appearing as a what if, but that what if is also emptiness. The what if is also the infinite, asking the what ifs. It's just being expressed, the pointlessness in that, but also the clarity that the what if and the state, the one that's being kind of like challenged, is the same. It's all empty. It's a circular emptiness.
Yeah. Great. I love that intro.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You have a question? There we go.
Hi, Emerson.
Hello.
So, since there's only what appears to happen in immediacy, there is no deepening whatsoever.
No.
Because there's,
Story there is.
yeah, okay, but it's a story,
It's a story, yeah.
and the story is, looks real
Mm-hmm.
and is unreal.
Yes. Yeah.
So, really, there's no deepening because it's like boom, 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 but whatever happens in the boom, well,
Yeah.
no deepening, no
Yeah.
deepening.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we hear like somebody saying, "Oh, is there a deepening or something?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a total story. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, what's being expressed is already what is, right? And the story of deepening is also what is, but it's also a story. Everything is a story. Even when someone said that there's no story, that's also a story. Even when someone says that, it's just this cyclical story. It's the what ifs and, all of that kind of stuff. So when there's a story, a narrative about, I went through this deepening, I'm having this deepening, or there's this deepening happening, it's coming from a personal story. So when all of that personal stuff, when it's all impersonal, when there's no time, and probably no one wants to hear this, everything's already awake. Everything's already awake. There's always awakeness. So if everything is already awake, even the illusion that I'm not awake is awake. It's already complete. That's why sometimes this communication seems so pointless. But the seeking of something that is already it happens in time. Kind of like, I'm gradually getting there, or I'm not quite there yet, or I'm deepening, or this is spontaneous for me. It's a narrative that's circling around this permanence. It's already permanent. Meaning that this permanence, which is the empty permanent, the infiniteness, this nothingness, is always this mystery. So there's this narrative about this mystery about, I'm almost getting there or I'm not quite there yet. Oh, this is it. It's all dancing around this unknowable. It's unshakable. It's unfuckable. So we fuck around with it.
Or something will happen in the future.
Something will happen in the future, or you know what? I'm not quite there yet. I'm there. There's no one here already, but I need to deepen. Yeah, I want to be the full nothing.
Nothing later.
Yeah. So all of this narrative about about seeking, there's no seeking happening. There's the story of seeking. There's a story of getting somewhere. There's a story if you even look at me, there's no me, there's no me. But that's also a story. As I mentioned in another talk, there's no me and there's no me. Because everything is just a narrative, it's a story of something that's already obviously complete. It's all emptiness already. It doesn't have to be this preferred experience or a story, because when someone tells a story about an enlightenment, it's just another story. When someone says that, oh, you know what, here, it's just another story. So all of the story about falling away, dropping away is just a story. But the clarity here is that when it gets figured out that this narrative is empty, and that's why you'll hear speakers say that, well, nothing really happened. It didn't really happen. There's no one here. There's almost kind of like, well, in the story, there's someone that fell away. Someone's dead. There's already death here. But not that didn't happen. Because nothing ever happens. But no one wants to hear that repeatedly. Well, no one wants to hear nothing is happening, nothing is happening, nothing is happening. So this is just a creative way of saying that nothing is happening. Thank you. Thank you. So the search is over because it never begun. Hi, Emerson. Can you talk about your day-to-day activity? This always gets asked, but there's no one here, and I know that's hard to comprehend. But there's also no one there, so there's no day-to-day. There's no days actually. In this communication, this directness is just what's happening. So, what seems to be happening is a story. What seems to be happening after this talk in about an hour and a half is I'm going to have a Blanche de Chambly, which is my favorite beer from Montreal. And Michelle's favorite beer. So I have a feeling the third session will be fire. So that's just a story. See, that's not happening. So anything that I say about what seems to be occurring is just a narrative of something that never really happens. But there's this automatic storytelling that just runs. It just runs, and there's no one doing it. The idea that I'm doing it is a part of that narrative. It's not a separate from it. But yeah, thank you for asking though. But it's going to be hard to say, to your friends and family in the story. Emerson wakes up at 4 a.m. because he's an old man. He goes for a jog in the story, but no one really jogged. In the story, he likes making croissant. It's his favorite pastry. That's why he's in Montreal for Blanche de Chambly and croissant. But that's just a story. What's the oh, Blanche de Chambly, sorry. Blanche de Chambly is a beer that I have not had in years apparently, because it's by Unibrew. Unibrew, yeah, from and I used to when I used to come to Montreal, that was the first thing that I did. Yeah. The storyless story, Chris goes, yeah, but that's still another story. So it's hard to get out the story, right? Well, even you say that there's the storyless story. That's why these words are really gibberish. There's this energetic boundlessness about this communication, and then expressing that every single thought, every single idea is a whole, is empty. Every single word. So a storyteller arises, and it. Kelly, go ahead, please. And it's not me. Yes. Yes. Because there's no you. Kelly, do you want to expand on that one? That was quite cool.
Sure. I won't turn my video on though yet. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well, it just seems like just now I was remembering that yesterday I was telling a couple stories to a friend, and afterwards I kind of thought, what was that?
Yeah.
And then just now it wasn't me.
No, yeah. Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah.
And then I see nothing or understand
Yes.
nothing.
Yes.
Well, that's cool.
That's cool, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And this is going to be such a bad joke. In the 90s, there was this song by Shaggy called It Wasn't Me. So Shaggy was being honest. It's a song about cheating. So he gets caught up in it, he'll be like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. Lost in translation, sorry. Or reference.
That's bizarre, because it just seems like for so long there was all this responsibility,
Yeah.
and there's no responsibility for anything.
No, that's the narrator, right? When there is this responsibility, and it's not, this is not kind of like a bypassing or something. If a character is apparently, you know what I'm saying, kind of like a good character, it will be a good character. If a character is rotten, it's going to be rotten. But what's being spoken about is that there's no rotten and there's no good. It's just a story. It's just a different page in the book.
Yeah.
And rotten and good are both innocent. The same. It's pure. Again, when I say the word pure, there's already kind of like of an idea of what pure is.
Oh, perfect.
Yes. Yeah. Everything's perfect already.
Yeah.
It's perfection appearing as rotten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that feels good not to
Yes.
be upset by stories.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Oh, hi, Kim.
Hi,
Hey,
Emerson.
Kim. Long time, apparently.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me all
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes, I can.
I would actually like to something is very puzzling here. Something happened yesterday at the first meeting, especially when you talked with Jason, the first time you talked with Jason. And something unexplainable, I don't know, clicked somehow. And but it actually gave birth to a question that puzzles something here. And it's about trauma, because it seems so so strange that apparently a trauma can have some effect on this, when it's also so obvious that there's only this. And I mean, beyond the arrow of time, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I wonder what is that? I mean, how can anything be apparently affected by something that apparently happened a long time ago? How is that possible? Or is it possible? Or is that just a part of this total illusion?
It is also part of this illusion. The trauma that's appearing is also it.
Yeah.
The memory that's appearing is also it. It's appearing as this historical, situation. It's something that's happening. I always use this story now, and I was trying to use it yesterday, when there was last summer during the pandemic time, and I got beat up, and someone basically told me to go back where you came from. So it was, in the story, it was a racist thing. I think I told this story.
Yeah.
And then what seemingly happened is, like, fast forward, the victim services was calling me, and I was basically said, oh, no, you know what? Because it was seen here that what was happening. It's not a denial of it. There was a stitches in the back of the head. There was ribs that were broken. So there was some pain, and there was vertigo that still apparently happens. I went to see my friend a month after, and then he was quite puzzled. He goes, "This is the place you got beat up at." I'm like, "Oh, I completely forgot." And it was not intentional. I just really like the chicken wings there. And, when you and then all of a sudden there's this ominous feeling that comes, from the apparent chest in the dream. It's a sensation. It's like a soundtrack, like a foreboding soundtrack that something is about to happen. And I was like, and I stopped for a bit. I'm like, oh, that's what they call trauma. And I think I was talking to Newman about that I'm like, oh, that's what appears as that. So it's this sensation. It's in the story. It's almost like a reminder. It's like a trigger or something. It's like a body kind of like thing. And this is just a story again. I have no idea what trauma is. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't know anything. And if this is not an advice or anything like that, if somebody needs to go to a specialist, this is not what it is. I'm just telling a story. So what was seen was there was just this, almost like this feeling of contractedness. And I started laughing. I'm like, because I used to feel that all the time, when I had trauma, you know what I'm saying? Any triggers. And it gets really, really spun into this massive story. I'll be posting on Facebook about my trauma. I'll be getting some other people to kind of like get their opinion on it. I'll be, it was just this big shebang, right? So for example, if that thing, what was kind of funny is when there was a reaction to it when it happened, when I woke up in the hospital and had stitches on the back of my head because I got really beat up. When I woke up in the hospital, there was a police, and I'm like, oh, did I do something wrong? The police showed me a video that you got beat up because of what happened was they were not being let in a restaurant because they didn't have a vaccination passport. It's just this division that's appearing in this apparent world right now. So, and then after that, you know what? I was walking my dog the next day, and then my friends and my family were like, are you okay? You seem to be all right. It was just seen as a nightmare. Like, when you have a really bad nightmare at night, you wake up, you shake up yourself a little bit. I'm like, oh, that was really rough. That's what was seen, that there was no history to it, really. It was something that felt really real, and I still have, but this is still a dream. So in the dream, I will still have bruises and stitches and all that kind of stuff. I just showed you a picture of me in the hospital with the bloodied head, saying there's still a picture on it. But all of that appearance is just appearing all at once. There is no history behind it. So it's just all at onceness. So when they ask me, are you not afraid? I'm like, well, I didn't want to say it's just a story because they would probably think that I had a concussion and take me back to the hospital. I just basically said to my family, well, what's the likelihood that the people that beat me up will come back and hunt me down while I'm walking my dog? That kind of thing. But they found it really surprised because there was no drama, there was no posting, there was no starting a Facebook group. But I did say in the reaction, basically like, yeah, get those fuckers. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I hope you get those guys. Although there's no one there, it's just a reaction. It's in the story. It's not going to say to the police, well, nothing really happened and there's no one here. That kind of thing, right? The character is still going to be in this storyline, but there's no one in the storyline. Does that make any sense? The apparent history of this happening is a story in the book, but there's no one claiming it anymore.
Yeah.
It's not a personal story anymore. But again, as I say this, this is not, a denial of what happened. It was seen as real, but there were no effects of it traumatically for this character.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, and it seems the strange thing seems that because the character obviously are totally story bound and story constructed, it's like it seems like that's the reason why it apparently can have an effect even for something happening like many years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And that it apparently can have an effect still, which I find so strange. And it was actually when I heard your conversation with Jason yesterday, it was like in that moment, all that just it popped or vanished.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah. I don't even remember my conversation with Jason.
No, I don't either. But it's just it was just
never
obvious.
Happened.
No, it never happened. But it was just obvious in that moment that this illusion of time leaves the only even logical, not conclusion, but just clear seeing that, well, there's only this. So whatever happened, so to speak, in an apparent past isn't.
Yes.
And how can anything have any effect at all, since it is constantly appearing and disappearing? It's just so strange how it how it can apparently creep in. But I can also hear what you're saying now, that it makes it I guess it's when it's seen through that either that time or meaning is just totally illusory, which is actually the same. It just pops in that.
Bingo.
The whole story of it. Yeah.
That was clearly stated, actually, Kim. That was very clear. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that was very clear.
Well, the bubble is still here, but I guess.
Well, that's also clear. That's what's being expressed is that there is really, the problem seems to appear, but there's no one behind it. It's clear that, for example, when this character has a vertigo, it you know what I'm saying, there's this seemingly kind of like, pain happening or kind of like this dizziness happening, but there's no one invested in it anymore. It happens and it unhappens. There's this illusion of time. So whatever happens is not happening as well because it's time bound. So whatever happens in time begins and ends. So there's this clear seeing that, okay, there's this pain happening, but it passes in this illusion. It's not even understanding. It's just a clear seeing that, okay, this is also not happening. It's like lucidity in dreaming, right? In the dream, you know what I'm saying? There's this lucidity in the dream that this feels completely real, but it's also not happening. That this is a dream, and it's not a knowing, it's not an understanding, it's not even anything. It's just what is. What seems to happen, you know what I'm saying, that there seems to be a problem is that this equal, not happening and happening tips to the happening. It's really happening.
Yeah.
And that's what's believed. It's heavier because not happening is really light. So of course it's going to tip into something that is a story bound.
Yeah.
So it believes in the illusion. It believes in the dream. Although there's no one there that believes it. It just feels heavier. Like when there is a nighttime dream that feels lighter and this feels heavier during the daytime. But there's no daytime and nighttime. Does that make any sense? So what seems to be believable is what feels heavier. It doesn't believe that this is not really happening. Because this is a really light expression. What do you mean it's not really happening? It should be hooray. You know what I'm saying? It should be like yippee, right? But it tends to go for the, well, this happened to me 20 years ago. That's what's heavy. And that keeps on coming up still. In the immediacy of this is being expressed that this is already boundless freedom. But the apparent character goes into the heavier story. Because that's a really light thing, that this is already boundless freedom. It's already free. It wants to go into the dramatic sequence of this foreboding kind of like, soundtrack that there's this darkness and everything. It's kind of like in a painting. It's looking for the light, all of this light in the painting. But it keeps on getting attracted to that really dark, shadows that makes the picture pop. It misses the whole picture. It's focused on the dark shadows that's appearing. There's nothing wrong with dark or light. It's just the same in a whole picture. It's missing the whole picture.
Yeah.
It's basically missing that this is real and unreal. Because the unreal is it's not found in belief, and belief only believes in real. But there's no such thing as belief.
But I guess it's this.
It's like the heavy burden. It's like the heavy burden of the belief system. The belief system is actually illusory, completely illusory, because everything that you believe vanishes at night. And it starts anew.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it starts anew again. And there's, it believes in a history, it believes in this. So again, when we talk about that really, this house of cards is really flimsy. If the belief was yanked out, everything falls apart. The belief in time, the belief in separation, the belief in everything, it's yanked out. It's kind of like, what is this emptiness? Then it goes back into the hooray. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I have more on this, but I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
It's nice seeing you, Kim.
Nice
really great
you.
seeing you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hooray! It's the hooray. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Tia. You asked me for. Oh, question.
Yeah.
I thought you were looking at the Tia.
Emerson, I'd like to share an experience about belief.
Yeah.
I was in a restaurant talking to someone, and this other no one anyway expressed his beliefs, all his beliefs, for like half an hour.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, no one sitting there, but listening, and they were all his belief were different than mine. So my God, I said, excuse me, I just went in the washroom and cried for I don't know how much time, because what is worth a belief if No one has the same belief. There's no one, but you know, the same belief. So then I got back home and I stayed like 3 days in a bed because all the belief system had fallen away. N- I- you know, there can be a belief. What's worth it if no one's having the same belief? Or practically, you know, this is a total story. This is an experience, but I thought, you know, I share that because, yeah,
Perfect.
it's a belief, you know. A belief is a belief.
Yes. It's thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Want some tea?
Sure. Yeah.
It's cold though. Do you
Oh, it's cold? I'll just drink water. It's okay. So yeah, so thank you for sharing that. There, you know, when it said it's a free falling, there's, it's you know, the beliefs are very sneaky, right? Because it can become very heavy, but it's actually nothing. So while I don't believe that, then it comes to a position. I don't agree with that. Or it can be backwards too. It can say, well, I don't believe that there's no one here. That's the same thing. That becomes a heavy thing again. Because if you believe that there's no one here, then you're just really reinstating that there is someone here. That there was someone in the first place. It's really difficult, right? It's really, really underground. It's very kind of like rogue. Very rogue kind of like way of kind of like this. And it's really nothing. It's like an intricate mystery that there's this belief that appears and disappears. It appears when it's convenient. You know what I'm saying? When you want, when the character wants to assert its reality. Well, this is, I believe. And then if you look around, you know what I'm saying, in the storybook of this apparent life, wars are waged because of beliefs. Suffering is happening because of belief. Apparently, none of this is true. This is just a happening. But that's how this belief, this very persistent belief that I am real and you are real and that we're separate, is a very flimsy illusion, but it's very heavy. Meaning, the reason that I say it's flimsy, once that's actually kind of like, when there's this belief, meaning when there's this free falling of this belief, you can like, it rises, you're like, oh wow, that's
nothing left.
yeah, when there's nothing left, yeah, it's just this, it's all of this appearance and disappearance is just seen as a narrator, kind of like as a soundtrack, kind of like what I was saying, it's this soundtrack that something happened, but it's not really believed. It's just heard, but it's also unheard because it's not seen as something that is solid. It's seen as something that is really empty, meaning it's really nothing. The belief can be swayed, it can be changed, kind of like the history, you know what I'm saying? Maybe in the beginning you believe that you were talking to Mother Mary and Christ, and then you really, really believe that that's really, really true to you, and then all of a sudden you believe in Santa Claus, and then that belief changes when you realize that Santa Claus is your dad, and then that belief goes underground again. Then you get into spirituality. Then you begin to understand that there's a higher self now. So you believe in the higher self and the higher consciousness. And then you get into non-duality, but the other kind of non-duality, where you believe that you are awareness, you are consciousness. And then that belief starts with this singular, false, illusory belief that I am real. So it maintains it. It maintains it with its belief system. So the maintenance of it goes underground, starting with belief in Santa Claus and whatever, talking to, and then we believe in angels and all that kind of stuff. And it just keeps on going underground. And then it becomes I am. That's another belief. I am all this. I am that. Even when somebody said that, well, that's not a belief because that's pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is also a belief. Absolute. When it goes, the moment that it lands into something that is solid, that it can't be shaken, then it's a belief. Even when you say that there's no me, and that's a belief, that's another thing, right? That's another thing. So what's being expressed here is that there's never been anyone here, and it's not coming from anyone. It's not a belief. What's coming out here is just this undeniability. It's not a belief. It's not a belief. So this is the complete kind of like, there's no more believer. So what was seen basically is the apparent root of the belief system is the me that thinks that I'm here. So when there's no one here, everything that's flowing, everything that's appearing is no control. It's just this immediacy, this automaticness, this all at onceness that seems to be happening with no one behind it. No one's controlling, no one's doing anything. And there's this obviousness to it. I don't believe in anything because there's no one that believes here. There's no I anymore that believes. So when people say that this is nihilistic, that's a belief system. That's just another thing. Meaning that everything is just this mystery here. And this mystery that appears as everything, this mystery that appears as talking and everything, is not separate from the mystery there. It sees wholeness completely. It doesn't see that there's something lacking there. It's complete. And the belief system basically is the separator. Well, my belief's different than yours. There's no there and here. There's no yours and I. And that's just the clear seeing that there's never been anyone here, is that whatever arises is unfucking believable. It's just like, wow. That's why there's unconditionality to it. That's why there's this dance. The dance that never stops. It never ends. Because when it ends, you have believed in something again. When all of a sudden it comes into a conclusion that this is just absolute pure awareness and consciousness, then it has become into a belief system again. It's quite tricky. It's quite tricky. Or abiding in something, or aware of being aware. That's another belief system. And it's quite tricky, quite tricky. And there's just no more seriousness here because it's unbelievable. And it doesn't take seriously. I can say that this is all a story. Because it doesn't believe in the truth anymore. Because the truth and the false are all belief systems. So when someone says that this is the absolute truth, that's a belief. Meaning it's also BS. Sorry, Ghislaine, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Emerson.
Thank you. Hi, Ghislaine.
Hi, no problem. It was delicious to hear. I really liked when you shared your experience at the restaurant, you know.
Yeah.
Because I've seen like there is a white bear in the Arctic that they had to move from one place to another place with an helicopter.
Oh.
And
the
animals,
polar bears, yeah.
Yeah, the polar bears. and animals are just you know, they don't have stories. So when he woke up after the, you know, the travel and everything, he was shaking the polar bear,
Yeah.
all of his body. And then he went, you know, all the energy that, all the adrenaline, I suppose, that have been in this body, just he all washed it out. And I think that when people, it's not bad that people have story. It's only what's happening. But if you keep on the story, you can't liberate. You know, you take this and you keep inside. Because I've seen something like it's like spiritual work, but the teacher, let's say, with the other, the person was allowed to feel everything, even terror, okay, everything. Yeah. And then at the end, he was laughing because it seemed it is nothing. And at the end, the teacher said, I don't believe you. And the guy was laughing out loud, much because nothingness has in a certain way been seen in this approach. So, but he was shaking like this, the guy. So, because we don't remember exactly what happened, that there is triggering in the body, it's not personal, it's the body energy seems to be there, but for no one. But if you keep on telling the story about what happened, well, I guess I don't know. I don't know nothing about trauma, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
Anyway,
anything about it too, and it's just
yeah,
something that that seems to appear in this communication is that there's no one that knows anything.
yeah.
Yeah,
But still, you can have like, it's not electric charge or something in the body that appears in certain situations, but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not.
It's almost like a navigating system. Don't go there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
happened by
yeah,
itself. It's no one's doing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like
It's
everything
it's
else.
like an allergic reaction in the illusion dream, right?
Yeah,
There's allergies,
yeah,
and this is the
yeah,
body's allergic reaction to violence, right? It reacts to it,
yeah,
or whatever seems to appear. And it's just a
yeah,
story as well. But
yeah.
in the story, as I said, the story feels absolutely real. That's the illusion that this chair is here, that this apparent body is here, but it's also not here because this is empty space here. This is
And yeah, yeah, yeah,
99.99% emptiness. Sitting on a
yeah,
chair, talking to someone, voice
yeah.
coming out. This is really silence, appearing a sound. And
It's
somehow
this.
this
Yeah,
impossibility is happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like if you encounter a psychopath, you don't go back to the psychopath to say, "I know you are nothing."
Yes, in
Yeah,
the story, yeah, you don't
yeah.
go back,
You
yeah.
don't.
But
No,
there's no one choosing to do that, so it might go back.
no. Yeah, you might. You might kill him. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Anything can happen.
Thank you.
I'm dark today.
Yes, there's nothing wrong or right about that. It's just what's happening. Maybe it's your shades. That's what's happening. Your shades are dark, so it's Oh, sorry. I'm missing all of these questions because I don't have proper glasses. Yes, yes, they did. Thank you for asking you. Yeah, yeah. It was kind of funny going back to that story. The Victim Services of Canada, we have universal health care here. They kept on calling and calling and wanting to ask if there was, they usually have counseling for victims. And I just kept on kind of like saying, oh, yeah, sure, I'm okay. I didn't really want to waste their time and pretend, but there was really nothing needed, right? In the apparent story of this character, there was a lot of traumatic events, and it would lead this character into trying to either drown it with substances or try to go the opposite way and deny it with meditation. The same thing. The same thing because it made something real, something that, it would go blackout drinking, you know what I'm saying, and party and, party for everything when disapparent triggers of what seemingly happened. Um, so there's always this attachment to this story of the historical story of something in the past that is kind of like when you bookmark a book and you keep on going back into it. That's what was happening. This story that was just very heavy, right? So and that's what the seeking was to, is to release some of that suffering. Again, there's this seeing here that a lot of apparent people come, here. This is not about therapy. This communication is this clear kind of like speaking that there's no one there, but also an acknowledgement that whatever is happening is what's happening. So if seeking help is happening, that's also what's happening. There's nothing wrong or right about that. Or seeking counseling, That seems to be what's happening. This character, you know what I'm saying, did not, when he was going through this apparent traumatic things and leading to a lot of feeling of unworthiness and everything, it did seek some professional help in the story. It's kind of like when you get a cut, you're not going to say you have a cut and it's like, maybe 4 inches and then your blood is gushing out. You're not going to start listening to this video. You go to a hospital, you know what I'm saying, and you get the stitches. Everything that is happening in this apparent dream is a reaffirmation or reinserting that you are real. But that's the illusion. So what's being expressed here is what's happening is that you are real and unreal at the same time. You are a story and not a story at the same time. You are and you aren't at the same time. So there's really no words for that. It's not a negation. It's just kind of like, it's a mystery. And no one knows have ever figured out this mystery. Or everything will just go poof. But what a delicious dream of separation it is. To be able to taste strawberries, to be able to hold a cup, to be able to drink water, to be able to have this apparent experience of crying and laughing, to be able to speak, hear, listen, dance, this wonderful dance of separation when it's seen as it is, as a dream of this wowness of like, oh wow, I just stepped on a, I just yelled because I stepped on a Lego block. And then you laugh because it feels like, oh wow. Wow, this aliveness that's also dead. Laura goes, dead or alive. Yeah, it's not dead, it's not alive, it's just this. But you can say that it's both dead or alive. You can say that it's just alive. You can say that it's dead. Again, these words are just really suggestions of what if. But the what if is this already. Everything is definitely included. Whatever seems to appear. Can you talk about unconditional love? I actually like talking about unconditional love, but I'm reserving that for the next weekend because the next event that I have, I'll talk about it, sure. It's called Unconditional Love as It Is. This apparent unconditionalness of what is appearing is not to be mistaken of what an idea of what love is. Because love is very limited when it becomes a personal idea of what it is. It becomes very separate. Because for even when you say a mother's love, it's beautiful and everything, right? That's still a separation. It's not whole. It's a facet or an idea of what love is, but what is being expressed as unconditional love is not something that goes down well with everyone. Because it's the acceptance of everything that's unacceptable and acceptable at the same time. It's like that this apparent unconditional love is so unconditional that it loves everything that appears unconditionally. Death, starvation, suffering, hunger is all accepted. But since it's an illusion, it's actually unconditional love appearing as death, hunger, suffering. So it just sees itself as it is. It sees suffering as unconditional love, not as the veil of separation. So it doesn't know any distinctions. It doesn't know any separation. It's blind to the apparition. It's blind to the illusion. It just sees it as it is. Yeah. It is. I can expand on it a little bit more if you like. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it is quite wondrous, right? Because there's this this radical acceptance of everything that appears. So if sadness appears, that's unconditional love appearing as sadness. And since it's appearing unconditionally, it's loved unconditionally. It doesn't see it as a negative or a bad thing. It just sees it as love. If this is non-duality, meaning that there's no separation, there's just this, then there's no interpretation. There's no different meanings or definitions. It's just wholeness. It's just love that is unconditional, and its only function is to love unconditionally. So everything that appears war, and this is hard, right? War, it loves it unconditionally. Suffering, it loves it unconditionally. Because everything is allowed. Everything that appears is allowed because it's also unconditional love. Everything that appears is unconditional love. Appearing as whatever it is. Again, this is a dance of unconditional love appearing as anxiety, suicidal thoughts, all that kind of stuff, right? Help, seeking, it's all unconditional love. So when the veil is lifted completely, when there's really no separation, the apparent, character in the dream will not be able to be function, because it will be stepping into glasses, hugging, hugging everything, because it cannot see it separate from it. When the unconditional love is seen as it is, it's just this no separation. There's no fight or flight response. The body has a fight or flight in the story anyway. So it doesn't go into sharp objects, and it doesn't jump into cliffs. It doesn't, do this kind of stuff, because what is being expressed here is that the unconditional love that is being talked about cannot really be understood. It's so deep, it's so meaningless, it's everything. There's nothing that's excluded from it. So the vile, the ugly, the disgusting is all welcome.
And is the illusion.
Yes.
So it doesn't even exist because it's only an appearance.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's the illusion of unconditional love appearing as vile, disgusting, beautiful, ecstatic, divine, evil. All of those are illusion because there's no separation. There's no others. There's just unconditional love. So unconditional is appearing as those, and that's an illusion, but it only sees unconditional love. So it allows everything to appear because it's just unconditional love appearing as whatever appears. So from a perspective of a separateness of this dream of a character, it can't possibly understand that. It can't possibly eat its own vomit once it's vomited, because it's like it's beyond comprehension. It's beyond. When I was an apparent a spiritual teacher, that's why I didn't talk about it for a long time, is because when I was a spiritual teacher, my bio said Emerson is a teacher of unconditional love. Because the idea of unconditional love is giving and being kind of like a saintly and all that kind of stuff. Selfless service, all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong or right about that. But really, what I was doing was conditional love. No one can practice unconditional love because the character that's practicing is conditional. It's limited. The character is limited. I don't care if it's whatever character it is. It's always going to be limited. So this character was serving others with the condition that this character gets liberated. You're suffering, I'm not, so I'm going to help you. This will be great on my points in liberation. I'm so liberated. It's almost like a Messiah complex. Yeah. Yeah, that I am in a better position, so I'm going to give. And then because of this position of that I have reached unconditional love, it did not understand when it had a breakup, a divorce, my mom was sick. Unconditional love could not, it has to present itself as always this blissful character. Because when it's sad, or it was not all of a sudden, it can't practice compassion to itself because it's just for others, because it puts itself on a pedestal as something that has achieved something already. So unconditional love is not achievable.
And when they say,
Sorry.
I hear often when they say that unconditional love, it's pure intelligence. It's like it seems false for me. I mean, what do you think?
I don't know what the other speaker said about that. It is pure intelligence, but to me that's just too much.
Too much.
Too much, yeah, too much. Kind of like, because there's when intelligence is mentioned, it's just another underground of what a higher being is. Pure, and that's what's being discarded here, right? Because when this communication goes into morphs into something else, you know what I'm saying? It morphs into it's disguised as, because when there's a higher being or a pure intelligence, there's separation already.
It's another name for God.
Another name for God, yeah. Or divine consciousness or pure awareness, all that kind of stuff. There's divinity involved, and there's nothing wrong or right about that. But what's being expressed here is that when this dropping away, the belief system was completely fell off. So that's a belief. When it comes into, that's why there's a changing of words here all the time, because there's no belief system here, because there's no one that believes anything here, because simply there's no one. And that's what's really, really clear. So when it becomes unconditional love becomes an idea, that's why I said it's beyond comprehension, because seemingly there's this acceptance of everything. And in the apparent dream of separation of this apparent character, for example, when everything arises and everything, but there's a rejection. For example, I'm not going to walk on a path that there's a lot of poison ivy, or I'm not going to walk in a whatever, or not going to. But there was in the story, there was this. This is a story that there was this welcomeness for everything, and this character got sick because it was welcoming everything. Lost a lot of weight, kind of like, I'm in love with everything, that kind of thing. But there's no one here. So yeah, it's just a very it's something that can't be talked about, because talking about it puts conditions on what is already, and it includes everything scary, everything, whatever seems to appear, right? And yeah, it's kind of like, there's this fantasized, romanticized version of what unconditional love is, but that's a story. So unconditional love is not a story, it's what is. And even that appears as a story. You know what I'm saying? But it's something that cannot be told and cannot be expressed. That's why I started feeling like a fraud at one point, because I was teaching unconditional love, and I knew that what I was saying was limited love. It had conditions to it. But it appears as unconditional, so it's more attractive. It's very saintly. So when people talk about unconditional love in a very spiritual way, it's very saintly, it's very Mother Teresa, very Gandhi, that kind of thing, or saintly, you know what I'm saying? Something that has transcended the human experience, something that is divine and all this kind of stuff. When what's being expressed is that everything is always as it is, and you'll hear this in texts and everything, in scriptures and everything, that this is already yeah, this is unconditional love already. So the good, the bad, the ugly is unconditional love, like this. And there's nothing really lacking. There's nothing missing. So trying to attain unconditional love, or trying to understand it, is putting conditions on something that is already. Thank you. Oh, David, sorry.
Hey, Emerson.
Hey,
Hi.
David.
So,
Hello.
hi there. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, great. Yes, I can. Yes.
Good, good.
So the illusory self can't
Yes.
escape. It can't escape the illusion because it lives in the illusion and it's made of illusion, so
Yes,
to speak.
it's illusion.
So, so could we say, and would we say that there isn't actually an illusion? And that
Yes.
this whole idea of a contracted energy, that there isn't a contracted energy.
No.
Can you talk a little bit about how there actually isn't an illusion or a contracted energy?
Yes. Kind of like what was being said earlier, what's being expressed earlier. In the directness and the clarity of this, what if this is already it? And everything that appears of what this is an illusion. But it is as it is already. It's clearly seen when there's no thoughts. But since thoughts are an illusion, this is thoughtless. This is clear already. There's already no one here. There's no thinker here. In the immediacy of this. So even what appears when what's being said as the illusion thoughts is also it. There are words of separation that makes this, illusion and not illusion, reality and everything. But reality and illusion are just words and describing what is already. So there is no illusion, there is no story, but what appears is a story and an illusion. It's a mystery.
Sure is.
Again, it goes round and round, right? It doesn't land anywhere. Because when you say that this is not an illusion, it also contradicts itself and says that, well, it appears as this, because there's no one there's no one that is here, but there's also someone that seems to be here. Does that make any sense? So there's the illusion and there's the emptiness appearing together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, and I can't grasp a word of what you're saying just now. but that's absolutely fine, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's no doer, and there's no cause and effect.
No.
So going back to this thing about the illusory self making an attempt to escape the illusion.
Yes.
I don't know if I could get this across, but
sure.
It's almost as if my brain is trying to come up with some sort of workaround, which whereby in conversation we could come to a mutual agreement that in actual fact the sort of contracted energy could unwittingly, without a conscious effort to be a doer, could actually end up doing something which affected the dropping away of the illusion, and that
you're trying to see, David, what's
theoretically happening, but it wouldn't be it wouldn't be due to any thoughts or actions or any of that business. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but see what you're doing there is you're trying to come into a conclusion. You're trying to land somewhere. Yeah. And that seems to be the obstacle, right?
Yeah.
So you're coming up with an illusion to dispel the illusion, which will be just another illusion. You're telling me a story about a story of how to get rid of the story, and everything that comes out of it will just be a story.
Yeah.
So it just goes in a circular thing. So what's being expressed here? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on. Sorry.
No. Go ahead. I lost my thought.
Yeah. I think I have as well. It's kind of not. I'm not saying this because I'm trying to create a workaround, like I said a moment ago. It's more just exploring, or sort of dancing, if you will, around this whole idea of a kind of cause and effect, I suppose.
Yes.
So we're in agreement there's no self and that there's no doer.
Yes.
But are things actually happening that actually leads to something else, if that makes sense? Yeah,
that's another story that it leads to something else, right? That's just another it's trying to go underground.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, for example, if I have a so if I have a one-on-one with Emerson, during that 1 hour session, there could be a dropping away of the self.
In the story.
Yes, in the story. So I may make a decision to go to see Emerson for that reason. But in actual fact, I can accept or know, if you will, that there's no me anyway who has ever made the decision to go and see Emerson. So either
Yes.
going to see Emerson will or won't happen.
Yes.
And at that meeting, in the story, there might be a dropping away.
So what usually happens in this kind of meetings is not a dropping away, but an illumination that there
Yeah.
never was anyone to drop away.
Yes.
That what's happening is not really happening. That
Yeah.
what seems to be, trying to get somewhere is already this. So that's what seems to happen. There is almost kind of like a tripping of the character when it gets caught off guard in this one-on-one sessions, because it keeps on it's confronting something, it's asking a question, but when it doesn't have its guard, it gets illuminated that you're not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what seems to happen. It's almost kind of like, hooray, ta-da, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Bingo, that kind of thing. It's kind
Yeah.
of like what seems to happen here that never really happened because there was no history. So what seems to have happened is this, that there was this seeking, and was just very contracted. There was no one contracted in this seeking, and like very, very kind of like studious and very, very consistent. You know what I'm saying? So when it was
Yeah.
relaxing, it was just DJing. It's like, wait a second here. There's no one DJing, and there's always this intuitiveness, and there's this resonance that every time that it DJs, there was nothing, no one was doing it. So it was not even, if you want to talk about cause and effect, it was not even this communication. It's nothing, because this communication and DJing, it's the wordless. So the reason, there's no reason. The reason that there's a lot of resonance here is what's being spoken about is not really in the words. It's this boundless energy, this boundless freedom that's expressing that. It's kind of like the opposite of the world is ending. One of those kind of like people. This is kind of like almost kind of like a barker saying that there's no one here, but with a smile. It's been seen that there's no one here.
Yeah.
No one's on the train.
Can I just I'd like to just quickly share a very brief story, if that's all right. Years ago, when I was a student, I went along to a theatre in my home city and saw a hypnotist, a well-known hypnotist in the UK, and I was so worried that I was going to get hypnotized that during the start of his show, when he sort of put people under, I deliberately looked down at my lap and tried to, go blah, 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 blah. I'm not listening. I was there for the entertainment, but I didn't want to risk being hypnotized.
Yeah.
And so there was this sort of feeling of like a protective barrier going up around me, sort of thing. Yeah. And in the last one-on-one I had with yourself, at one point, subconsciously, I noticed your body language, and out of nowhere, just that same protection went up. It's like I felt myself zoning out. I felt something weird happening, and the self, if you will, put up the defenses and said, "You're being hypnotized." So the barrier went up. So the barrier went up straight away. Isn't that funny?
I don't know how to hypnotize.
Love it.
Look into my eyes. That's why wear those glasses. The pendulum thing. I don't know.
Brilliant.
There is no one here.
I'll be prepared next time.
Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
Thank you, David. Kim goes, it sounds a little bit strange to say that it already accepts and loves everything, since it sounds that it is apart from it what it accepts and loves. Seems like this whole thing, including suffer, unconditionally love, etc., only is the same illusion, and only unspeakable stillness is. Yes, that's beautiful, Kim. Thank you. There's a question here from Tanya. Would you say that as a character, Emerson, that you participate in the story? There's no actually Emerson that's participating in the story. It's just the story happening by itself. There seems to be an appearance of this character.
Well, sorry, I'm hopping on here with you. That's what I meant. Like, you're a character. Okay. Yeah. So here's Emerson. He's a character. He's he's a DJ. He does this and that. Do you? The story goes on, right? And at the end of the day, I mean, I feel like I'm in the story because I'm still a me. Like I'm still vibing as a me. But when you're not a me, you're still participating in the story in some way. Like there is a story, and I'm Emerson, this guy, and I do you too.
Yeah. Totally.
Can you
There's this kind of like
on that a little
tongue-in-cheekness
bit?
about it. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, there's this apparently happening story with this Emerson character, kind of like going along. When for example, my brother asked me, what are you doing in Montreal for? I'm like, I'm just doing these talks and everything. It doesn't talk about, it doesn't say that there's no one there and everything. So it is participating in the story still. Still DJ, still does this. Is going to it's just a happening, right? But there's no one here that claims the story that this is really happening to me. So this is just seen as a lucid dreaming. There's a lucidity in this dream, meaning that it's not real. But in the lucidity of the dream, it doesn't have any choice to DJ or to talk about this. It doesn't have any control anymore. And that's
the participation.
Yes, that's the unconditional freedom, that this is still talking about this. There's a love in talking about this, but there's no one that is talking about this.
I mean, I bring it up because I keep going back to whatever is happening right now is it. It's all that's happening. I mean, there's a me on top of this, but this is all it. And I'm just a character participating in the story, of course.
That's what I was being discussed earlier, that thin belief that I am still participating. Once that's caught off guard, once that's kind of like, aha, it's believing in its own lies, right? It's believing that it's actually this character. So when it gets caught off guard, it gets suspended. The belief gets suspended. It gets into kind of like, what the hell?
And when you can see it that way, when you can separate it and you say, wait a second, this is what's happening, but it's only happening to the character. It's not, there's no me it's happening to. It's just Tanya, the character, is here on a call with this character Emerson, and we're all just sitting here.
Yeah. Seemingly in the story, right? I'm just telling the story here, that there's usually a suspension. There's usually crying or laughing or kind of like, wait a sec. That seems to you know what I'm saying, in the story, but none of that happens as well, because this is already free to again, unconditional love accepts everything, even the statement that I'm separate from unconditional love, that I still feel that I'm a me. It's also
I love it.
Yeah.
And I love you in this environment. I love this green behind you. I love how you're coordinating with it naturally, of course, just as happening. And I really feel like this suits you, like this coming someplace rather than you sitting behind the, in front of the brick wall, the imaginary brick wall, because you're just, I don't know, the energy's flowing so beautifully. And
thank you.
So much deep gratitude for you. I couldn't express it in words. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Tanya.
Love you.
Love you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a couple of questions here. They're from Leela. Hi, Leela. I've heard you use the word creative. The character certainly can feel creative, but there's a creativity, feeling boundless energy, or God animate and flow through the character. This is a story in time. Yes, yeah. Actually, in Tibetan dream yoga, the practice is once the dreamer identifies itself apart from the dream character, it can then change the dream from within the dream. There's no change in the dream, but it's just seen that the dream is a dream, and that's okay. There's an acceptance of everything, because there's no reason to change the dream anymore, because the character is free. I think that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Lita. It's a beautiful one. Thank you. We'll talk more. And thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you back in about an hour. And bye, everyone.
Thank you, Emerson.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
You are great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hooray. That seems to be the word. Did I say hooray? Yes, you said hooray.